Dr. Rick Jacoby here. Let's talk about your brain and the process of sugar on the brain. Now, if the carpal tunnel of the wrist is a nerve compression caused by sugar, and let me make a more definitive diagnosis here. My theory is that trauma plus sugar equals nerve dysfunction. Repetitive motion on the hand while you're drinking a Coca-Cola is the cause of carpal tunnel. It's not the repetitive motion alone. We had typewriters that had 10 times the magnitude of force before computers came out. And the IBM computer actually came out in for the home computer in 1974, the same year that high fructose corn syrup was introduced into the can of Coke next to your computer. Yes, trauma does aggravate it, but it's the sugar chemical reaction that causes it. Now let's take that same concept and apply it to another nerve, such as Alzheimer's. So good Dr. Alzheimer in the early 1900s recognized some of these changes in the brain, which he called dementia, and eventually his name got put on that observation. So Alzheimer's is not a disease, it's an observation of a process of a particular nerve on a particular tissue, which is the brain. And what structure in the brain are we talking about? It's called the hippocampus. Why is it called the hippocampus? Because it's Latin for seahorse. That's what the structure looks like. What does that structure do? That structure does three things. It's the center for memory. And if you lose your memory, we call that Alzheimer's dementia. Number two, the sense of smell. Number three, addiction center. Wow, we have the perfect little place for sugar to affect. The hippocampus, which is connected to the olfactory nerve, the sense of smell. What's the first symptom of Alzheimer's? Loss of smell. What's the first symptom of carpal tunnel? Loss of touch. Wow, wait a minute. Do we have a correlation here? I think so. It's sugar, nerve, muscle, function. Sugar, nerve, muscle, function. It's all the same thing. So in Alzheimer's, it's a progressive, insidious, pervasive process. It takes about 40 years, depending on how much sugar you're eating in real time. It destroys your pancreas, where the insulin is produced. And as that insulin levels go up, meaning you need more and more and more insulin to process all this sugar you're eating. And then we get into a concept of epigenetics. What does that mean? Well, you and I have the same genome, but you and I have different epigenetic traits. They're called alleles. What does that mean? Well, you eat an apple, and those alleles change. I eat an apple, they change, but not exactly the same as you and I are not exactly the same. You may get Alzheimer's, I could get gallbladder disease, another person could get multiple sclerosis, another descriptive disease of nerves. Let's go back to 1600s, 1800s, Charcot, 1800. He noticed a patient with these little white spots in the brain and the cervical spine. What was he describing? The effects of inflammation. What was causing the inflammation? Sugar, just being introduced massively into France at that time. His name was Charcot. He named that disease multiple sclerosis, MS. What does that mean? Sclerosis means hardening of tissue in the brain and spinal cord, caused by sugar. Period.